Takes us on to the first call to public. It's an opportunity for anyone to step up and share your thoughts. Keep in mind, this is not a question and answer session, and the board cannot respond to your comments, and we do limit you to 3 minutes. Do we have any speakers? Come on up. It's on over here.
Okay, great. I just wanted to take a moment to thank...
Still not on the mic.
No, it's not on.
Check. Check 1, 2.
There
we
you
go. I want to take a moment to, first of all, just hello, good evening. The name is Tawn Bellinger from Earhart Road. I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce and the Township for hosting the Meet the Candidates last week. Last Tuesday was a nice event, for an opportunity for citizens to get to hear what the candidates had in mind and whatnot. Question and answers also. But thank you so much, that was great. And I want to say congrats to Barb Griffith of Veterinary Hospital for 30 years of work here in Northfield Township. And I want to also mention that Saturday is the Whitmore Lakes Races. So I see you all out there, right? 10K, 5K, splash and dash, come on. You know it'll be great. And then Monday, I'm looking forward to the parade. And I think I heard fireworks on Monday, maybe? Saturday. Oh, after the race later. Okay, great. Anyway, happy Independence Day, and I wish everyone a wonderful, wonderful holiday and an excellent evening. Thank you so much.
Was that Saturday, the
Fireworks are on Saturday, yes, correct. All right, do we have any other speakers this evening? Come on up.
My name's Craig Warburton. I live at 450 West Joy Road. And I'll try and keep this really, really brief. You have living water, conditional use on your agenda tonight. And the last thing I would ever want to do is say something against building a church anywhere. But the approvals from the Planning Commission were accomplished without a quorum present. And at the end of the meeting, I stood up and spoke about that very fact. There were 2 commissioners absent, 2 recused themselves. That left 3 to vote. You know, the Planning Commission has done a wonderful job at lowering the bar, but I don't think they can change the definition of a quorum under the enabling documents from the state. So as much as I think you should pay attention, I don't know how you pay attention to that because you don't have minutes from that meeting in your packet, but they were approved with a unanimous vote of 3, which is not a quorum. And after I made that comment in the last call to the public, the petitioner came back up and proceeded to add things to his site plan submittal and was interactive with the Planning Commission, and the 2 gentlemen that recused themselves seemed to not only participate but help distribute documents to the rest of the Planning Commission. So the only exception I take is the process and rules and order. And the Planning Commission has chosen to not follow Robert's Rules of Order. Who knows what parliamentary procedure they really are going to ever follow? I don't know. But I think you're voting on something that was improperly approved tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers this evening? All right. That takes us on to any board member comments at this time.
On the what?
Any board member comments at this time? We're done with call to the public? All right. Correspondence and announcements. Howard, do you have something?
Yeah, one item. I sent out to the board and to the Planning Commission a letter indicating that Sally Hodges will be retiring from McKenna Associates, and she's moving to North Carolina. Is that right? And so I invited Mr. McKenna here, if may indulge, Madam Supervisor, for Phil to give some brief updates.
Come on up.
Thank you. Sally Hodges announced early in June to me that she wanted to retire. She has been with the firm for 32 years, and she and her husband, who lived in Superior Township, decided to retire and move to North Carolina. And So I wanted to personally tell you that because I know you were pleased with Sally's services, and especially in light of the change in planners that you've had over the last few months or years. I was particularly concerned about it and so on. So you hired a company, and that company's been around for 38 years. And that company has had 2 owners, and now it has a 3rd owner. So I have another story to tell. On 15th of June, I sold the company to one of our other long-term employees. He's only been there 18 years. And so he will continue. I bought the company from its founder in 1986, and I owned it for about 30 years. And then I was able to, I'm in good health. I don't have any reason to sell it except that I wanted to make a responsible transition. So we've come up with a plan to transition the ownership to John Jackson, who was the executive vice president of the company and started with the company in 1997. And John couldn't be here tonight, but I will make an opportunity for you to meet him. I am still the president of the company for the foreseeable future. And so I'm here tonight to tell you that and to assure you of the continuity of the organization since its founding in 1978, and to assure you of continuity of high-quality service. I have with me tonight a young man who has 12 or 13 or 14 years experience. I'm not precisely sure, but he has his master's degree in urban planning from the University of Michigan. His name is Patrick Sloan. He has worked extensively in Washtenaw County. He was the planning director for Dexter Township for 10 or 11 years, and we hired him from Dexter Township a few years ago. He also works for York Township in Washtenaw County, and we recommended him to Howard as the new project manager for Northfield Township. I do that with a lot of confidence. He is in high demand by all of our clients that have met him and have worked with him. He has, when the Supreme Court changed all the sign ordinances in the United States of America, Patrick, on his own initiative, put together a group of sign experts and lawyers and planners, and has made numerous presentations and provided professional leadership on that topic around the state of Michigan. But his expertise is providing planning and zoning services to local governments like Northfield Township, and specifically in Washtenaw County and around the state of Michigan. So I'm going to introduce Patrick right here for anything you would want to say, Patrick. Go ahead.
Thank you, Phil, and thank you all for inviting us here to discuss the transition, both with the company and in the township. As Phil said, we're working diligently to make this as seamless a transition as possible. I've worked extensively in Washtenaw County and working with McKenna Associates. I've been fortunate to continue working in Washtenaw County and nearby communities like in York Township and to some extent in Lyon Township nearby. So I grew up in the area. I grew up in Scioto Township, and I continue to work in the area, and I consider myself very fortunate for that. I've been with McKenna Associates for about 4 years, and I've worked closely with Sally Hodges throughout those 4 years in several communities, including most recently Northfield Township. So we've worked together a little bit in Northfield Township. This is even before announcing the transition. So I'm familiar with the issues and the items going on in York Township from a planning and zoning standpoint, and I believe that this will be a very seamless transition. Sally and I are continuing to work closely on that transition to make sure that once she officially leaves the company, that we don't miss a beat. So again, I'm very happy to be here, very honored to be working with Northfield Township, and I'll be happy to take any questions from the board.
Go ahead, Wayne.
I don't have any questions, but I have a statement. Sally Hodges made a presentation to Northfield Township Board on 6/14. On 6/16, 2 days later, she says that she's retiring. I don't know how much we paid her to go through all that and give this presentation, but I did not like that at all. That, you know, if you knew she was leaving, why would she be here? And 2 days later, she says she retires. That's a wrong way to treat us, in my opinion. Thank you.
Janet, do you have anything? Okay.
Yeah, is there any change in any of the contracts or anything with McKenna?
You want me to go ahead?
Yeah, if you
From our
want.
standpoint, it should say, I recall people saying they were paying Sally Hodges $130 an hour and so on when she first started. Now, that's because she has 30 years' experience and so on. And to keep talented people, you have to pay them. There should be some hourly cost savings with Patrick. His rate is lower. That rate is already provided in the contract. The contract says it's got two ways of paying anyway. There's flat fees for reviewing site plan. That's a fixed fee that it doesn't change. The second thing is we have a schedule of hourly rates so that depends on the particular person. The highest priced person there, I think, was Sally Hodges in that schedule. She's a vice president, senior vice president. So there should be a general lowering of the cost, all right, according to that schedule. One other thing you have to be aware of, you will not be, when Patrick and Sally are working together, you still only be charged once. I want to make sure that we're aware. We work in the public arena. This change is occurring because of us, not because of you. If it's caused by you, you pay. If it's caused by us, we eat it. So I want to assure you of that. Any other questions? I'd be glad to respond, or Patrick, you can ask.
I don't have any. Does anyone have anything else? All right. Patrick, looking forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right. We're still on correspondence and announcements. Anything else?
I have nothing. I just want to walk out with the two gentlemen, and I'll be right
Yeah,
back.
we will get started on the rest of the meeting. All right. As you know, in your package, we're working on agenda item number 1, and that is the hiring of the part-time police officer, Corey Johnston. Does anyone have any questions?
I have some questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
What does MCOLRS requirements mean?
That stands for Michigan Commissions on Law Enforcement Standards, so it's the state of Michigan licensing board for all police officers.
And this is the hiring of.
Yeah, he's currently a reserve with us right now, so
How long has he been working with it?
about 8 months.
Yeah, I was going to say 7 months. Okay. Thank you.
Do you need any contingencies as part of your motion, or just a flat-out hire?
Just a flat-out hire. He's already completed everything that he needs to.
Great, thanks. I'll make a motion to approve the hiring of part-time police officer Corey Johnston. Effective immediately?
Yes.
Okay.
Why would he not be already qualified for this MCOLRS?
When he originally got hired with us, he was not a MCOL certified police officer, and then in January, he took it upon himself to go get his certification again. So he got the requirements met and fulfilled all the obligations.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, before the interruption, I had a motion on the table. I did have 2 people second me, and okay. Braun second. You got that, Lisa? Thank you. Any so make a motion to approve the hiring. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We also, for number 2, we have the resignation of police officer Michael Buxton. Yes, Wayne?
How long was he with us?
I believe I want to say about 2 years.
Okay. He's leaving.
Yes, he got hired by another department.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation of Police Officer Michael Buxton with regret, effective Saturday, June 18, 2016.
I'll support.
Thank you. Engstrom motioned and Otto supported. Any further discussion? Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. On to number 3, the Verizon cell phone tower. As you see in your package, the Planning Commission is taking care of this and are looking just for the conditional use approval. Is there any questions?
Yeah, I have one.
Go right ahead.
Howard, on the, there's no page numbers on here, but in here is the Northfield Township conditional use application. And it says the fee's crossed out for 600 and 500, which would be 11, would be 1,100. And the fee is $1,550. Can you tell me why it's more than what would be normal, or?
Yeah, I can explain. I can't explain that particular calculation, but I can explain fees around cell phone towers. Can you tell me what page? I mean, I know it's not
Howard,
page.
it's almost, it's where you see the R, no, there's no number, RJP counseling, it's probably, yeah, right after the current, the maps, back.
Right after the maps?
Yeah, a couple of pages back from the map, it says Northfield Township Site Plan Review.
Report too.
Okay.
You see it? Yeah.
Verizon, next time, put page numbers on, if you're ever building another tower. Okay, so I can't specifically tell you what 1550 adds up to, but here's what I can tell you. Under statute, and I completely disagree with this, I think it is absolutely, I think it's very problematic, and it's because of a very powerful lobby in Michigan, in my estimation. But the cell phone industry, the cell phone wireless carriers are only required to pay $1,000 for a cell phone tower in a community under the statute. It's specifically called for in the statutes. Now, so that is a restriction. Now, I know that the company can sort of waive that $1,000 requirement, particularly as it relates to pass-through fees. So fees from the planner, fees from the engineer. There's debate on whether or not they have to do that, or whether or not they're obligated to do it. But the statute only requires a $1,000 fee. So that is probably where you're seeing some discrepancy. Other than that, I can't specifically say what 1550 adds up to.
Well, the next thing on the board, the conditional use for the church is 600 CUP, whatever that is, and 500 RP SP. So what I'm just saying is the church, which is the next thing, it's 1,100, but this one is 1,550. I just wondered what the difference was.
Well, I don't have the answer off the top of my head, but Mr. Dockett, if you want, we can set up a time and we can go over the whole fee schedule. And we can get you an explanation of the fees for both applicants if you wish.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why it's different, that's all, Howard. So I don't need any more than that. Thank
Okay.
you.
Any other questions? I'll make a motion to approve the Verizon cell tower conditional use approval, contingent on the conditions, specifically the legal descriptions, matching up
Legal description matching from the new legal description submitted on the site plan to match the legal description that was approved by the township board in contract, in the lease agreement.
So it's an amendment of the lease to
correct the legal description to reflect what's in the approval.
Lisa, did you get that?
The legal description on the site plan matching the legal description in the contract,
In the lease,
in the lease.
in the lease agreement with the township.
Do you need the case number?
A case number would be helpful.
Okay. Ready? JPC 160001. 3 zeros.
All right, we have that lengthy motion on the table. Thank you, Thomas. Engstrom motion, Thomas supported. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed?
I abstain for professional conflict.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So next agenda item is number 4, and that is the living water conditional use. Any discussion?
Yes. I already discussed it, but here it says the fee is 600 and 500, so that I think is what is normal for the township.
Right. We'll have to check into that after the meeting. Anyone else?
No, it's-
Yeah, I'd like to see something in our packet on it. Because I don't have anything in our packet.
Right there?
Oh, the planning commission meeting?
Yeah. Howard, is there
Has
any problem
anyone
with passing
addressed
this?
Mr. Warburton's
Any problem with
concerns?
passing this?
I don't believe that there's any issues.
Oh, okay.
I don't believe that there's any issues with the quorum issue that was brought up this evening by residents. I mean, it's really more of a legal issue, Brad.
Well, you have to have a quorum.
Yeah, you have to have a
There
quorum.
was a quorum, but two abstained and 2 people were absent, so there was a quorum of people at the meeting. But there was,
But they couldn't vote.
right, 4 couldn't vote.
So a 2-1 vote wouldn't have done it, right? I said a 2-1 vote wouldn't have done it, but a 3-0 vote is a majority of the quorum present. Right.
So, I mean, that's what my opinion was the night of the meeting, which is why I was at the planning commission meeting, and that was my interpretation, which is why I didn't stop it at the planning commission, and why I'm not holding it here. It's that you had a quorum of the meeting present, and you had a majority of those individuals that voted on the application.
As I say, we're happy to look into it if the board wants us to, just to be certain.
Well, how many people were there? How many?
5 were present,
5 were present, but 2 didn't vote.
but 2 abstained.
Well, if 2 abstained, that's like a no vote, isn't it?
No, an
Okay,
abstention is
okay.
not a no vote.
Okay, so that, did all 3 of them that were left vote? Yes?
That is correct.
I don't know, but yes, I think we should.
We will run into this all the time in a small town, that people will have to abstain
Okay,
from their votes.
So I'm
on
having
there.
a problem even finding it on here, though.
Finding what? What are you looking for?
The 3 no votes, or the 3 yes votes, or even the motion.
That would be on the next meeting minutes.
It'll be in the minutes, you mean?
Oh, there's only 1 page, sorry.
Yeah, there's only
There's
1
no
page.
minutes. Oh, wait a minute, in the back.
I would prefer to table it and have,
No,
and
it's not
have
there.
our attorney look into it. I mean, I'm not against this, but I really think that we need to make sure that we have our i's dotted and our t's crossed.
I agree.
Brad, I know you're here and you've said your opinion. I would still like to move forward and put the motion out there to see if there are enough people on this board to go ahead and make approve the motion on hand. We do have our attorney here who has said it's all right.
So you want us to take?
Well, she would like to table it, but I would like to make a motion, so we'll see which one goes through, gets a second.
I'll second hers. What,
No,
excuse me.
You want us,
Excuse me, I'm with her.
right.
What motion's on the table? I'm confused now.
To vote,
Okay.
to vote for it.
No, there is no,
There was no motion.
there was no motion made, so I will go ahead and make my motion and see if I do get a second and enough votes to pass it. So I will make a motion to approve the conditional use approval of living water church.
Well, I'm all for Living Waters Church, but I'm not for doing something that'll get us, have a problem with later.
Right. Well, so I got a motion on the table to approve the conditional use approval for the Living Water Church.
I have a question first.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Well, we need a second before you can do discussion, right?
We can, yeah, we always do a
She's
discussion
looking for
before
a
and
second.
after.
She's looking for a second.
Okay. I want to know a firm opinion on whether or not we had a quorum when we voted for this. Are we in good standing if we go ahead and approve this or deny it?
And that's why I said, I can't be certain right now. I'd have to
Okay.
look it up to be sure.
All right.
I don't want it denied, but I want to make sure we're doing.
I'm sorry?
What? I think I'm concerned why everybody's in a rush to do this.
No, it's
in a
not, well, he
rush.
stated that he's fine with it. Howard is fine with
He
it.
said he wasn't sure.
I'm also fine with it because conditional uses are the province of the board to make a decision. What the planning commission did was make a recommendation.
Right.
Bring it forward.
Whether they had a quorum or not, to my mind, is not particularly relevant to this board on this particular question, because it's a recommending, the planning commission function approving a conditional use is a recommendation only.
Right.
The site plan approval, that's a different issue. That's not before us. But the conditional use itself, they recommended it. That's all they did.
Correct. If the planning commission denied the conditional use, it would still be in front of you for action.
I have a motion on the table, and is anyone willing to second it? Kathy, oh, that's right, sorry, Kathy, thank you. Okay, so any further discussion? And I'm sorry, Lisa, I have a motion, Braun supported, you got that, right? Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes.
Welcome aboard, Living Water.
Thank you, looking forward to some activity in downtown. The inspector contract, did anyone have any questions on that?
What are you on?
Number 5, the inspector contract.
Yes, I have lots of questions.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Can you give me a few minutes?
Absolutely.
Okay, Howard, does the contract cover only mechanical or building inspections too?
No, just, does not cover.
Just the mechanical?
Just the, not building inspections. It does not cover Kurt Weilander building. Just mechanical, plumbing, electrical.
Oh, okay, but we still have Kurt Weiland, he's gonna be,
Yes.
he's the building. It says all inspection work, it says here that I'm asking this question, will all inspection work, will all inspectors work Monday through Friday? In other words, I know when I was building, I called them up, and they said, well, the electrician only comes out and inspects on Thursday, so, but according to what I'm reading here, it looks to me like they're gonna be every day, is that correct?
No. No, and in fact, the contract hasn't been put in front of the actual inspectors. The inspectors have days when they're here and days when they're not here, and we'll work with the inspectors on what particular days are here and what particular days are not here. This is just the form that the contract is going to
My concern is the person who's trying to get the inspection, I mean, they're trying to, if they have to, that's why I'm asking, I would have thought they would be any day that they call.
No, they're not available.
Okay, and then it says here, the inspector agrees to provide 1 week notice if he's going to take off. Well,
Correct.
Generally, they have to have somebody take their place.
That's correct.
I mean, but I think we should make it pretty easy for these people that are trying to, I know because I've been building, and you got to be able to get inspections. If you can't get inspections, you can't pour concrete, you can't, you gotta line up all your contractors. And when you're talking about maybe 1 day a week, somebody getting
Oh,
an
no, we
inspection.
don't have anyone that's 1 day a week.
Well, how many days a week is it, Howard?
Usually it's 2 or 3 days a week they're available.
Well, here it says 5 days, and as far as I can see, that's why I'm asking the question. I'm not arguing with you, I'm just It just says, that's what it says here. I'm just saying what it says. It says every day. It says they're gonna work Monday through Friday. Monday through Friday means 5 days a week.
Yes, sir.
But you're saying, no, that's not.
No, sir.
No, it's not the fact.
The inspectors are not available 5 days a week.
Okay.
I know what it says. It's because we have not negotiated the contract. The contract is only in a general form. It is not specific to the individual. The electrical inspector may be only available on Mondays and Wednesdays. The plumbing inspector may be only available on Thursdays and Fridays. These people, these are not full-time jobs. They're not available on call on an as-needed basis. These are people that are inspectors of other communities, or they're...
Okay, I know. The inspector agrees to perform all inspections as may be reasonable request by the township Monday through Friday. That's what it says. So that's why.
During regular business hours.
Yeah. And when,
It's saying during business hours.
Yeah, but now, that's what it says here, and I would say that would be great. But if they're not going to do that, are they outside contractors, Howard?
What's that?
Are they outside contractors? We're not responsible for the inspector. They have their own insurance. Are they gonna get a 1099?
Yeah, they're gonna get a 1099 and they'll be
So
responsible.
they don't work for they're not employees of the township.
That is correct.
Okay.
Although, I will tell you that while that is correct, that is not always the way the judge rules. And I don't want to get into too much of a complicated discussion here tonight, but for those of you who want more information and more detail, just because somebody is a 1099 and just because somebody is an independent contractor does not mean they're automatically considered not an employee of the township. Under labor law, there's a very specific criteria that you have to go through, and when it gets to court, the judge looks at very specific criteria, and they literally go through a test. And oftentimes, judges rule in favor of the general contractor and against the employer relationship with respect to independent contractors, because businesses, mostly on the private side, businesses tend to use the independent contractor model to get around paying benefits. So the answer to your question is nuanced, and I understand that I'm making it complicated, but I want you to understand.
You are, and I don't
I
need
want
all
you to
that.
understand.
The inspector agrees to provide
Just-
1 week notice for any and all requests for time off greater than 3 days.
Correct.
Well, you know,
We're not
if
paying-
if we're gonna do this, let's do it right. Let's give the people, give them an inspection. I mean,
Jim, can you turn down the feedback? Okay.
let's provide a good service to the people. That's all I'm asking.
I guess your question on the 1 week vacation is, Mr. Dockett?
What's that?
Thank you, Chief.
My question, what?
I'm wondering if you have a question on the 1 week vacation issue,
Yes.
which is what?
Well, it says here, the inspector agrees to provide 1 week notice for any and all requested time off.
Right.
Well, what about the people who want an inspection that week? I don't care about this guy telling us next week that he can't come for a week.
If there's a significant time gap, we have other inspectors at our disposal. So this is not our only option. I mean, we don't only have one plumbing inspector. If there's 2 weeks off or 3 weeks off and we need backup, we can get that.
Usually a building inspector will send somebody else if they can't make it.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. You don't need to make any changes to the proposed inspector contract, do you?
Yeah, no, I don't believe so. Just, the contract will go through, the contract has already gone through extensive legal review. It'll go through another legal review process once it's signed by the independent contractor. The motion that I'm going to request tonight is that you approve this contract in its current form and that you authorize myself to sign on the township's behalf the contract the contract for the individual inspectors so we can move forward with them being a independent contractor for Northfield Township, so we don't have to bring it back individually to the board. If there's any substantive changes that are required by the independent contractor, and those substantive changes end up being a policy nature and not an administrative nature, we will bring it back to the board. But otherwise, you're giving me approval to sign on behalf of the township for these independent contractors.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve the inspector contract form as presented for contractor inspectors to be contracted through the township, also giving Howard authority to sign those contracts.
Support.
Thank you. Engstrom motion and Chick supported. Those in favor?
I certainly hope that we do an adequate job on this.
Wayne, you gotta, hold on. Wayne, please stop. I know. I'm asking you to stop interrupting me every time I'm in the middle of something. It throws the concentration off, okay? Please wait your turn. Yes, Jackie.
I had a question. Do we have anywhere in here that they have to show their license or anything?
What did she say?
I didn't see
Can't
it
hear.
real quick.
No, I don't think that's in there, but that should be in there, and I certainly would encourage a friendly amendment to that.
Okay.
That they have to have appropriate licensing.
Licensures with the state.
Is it in there?
I didn't see it. I really quickly looked.
I don't remember it.
Yeah, if you look at paragraph 9, the inspector shall meet and continue to maintain compliance with any and all registration, certification, and
thank you.
licensing requirements for any and all local, state, or federal entity
All right,
needed
thank
for
you.
them to be authorized.
Thank you. Good question.
All right, anything else? All right, we do have that motion on the table. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, that takes us to number 6, the resolution. Any questions? I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 16-544 to set the public hearing for Arvin Sango tax. Sango, sorry, tax abatement. And that public hearing, just for everyone, is July 12th at 7 o'clock in the
I
Northfield
support.
Township Public Safety Building. Thank you. Engstrom motion, Donato supported. Those in favor?
Aye.
Actually, I need a roll call. Chick?
Yes.
Braun? Yes. Dockett?
Yes.
Engstrom, yes. Westover? Otto?
Yes.
Thomas? Yes. Thank you.
Otto. Me.
All right, number 7, the change of the polling location. Any questions? All right, I make a...
I'd like to thank Howard, or thank
Don't thank me.
the clerk that we
The
got-
clerk, Angela Westover.
that we got this moved over to the
Angela,
school.
she's right there.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 16-545 to change the polling location for precincts 1 and 3. Do I have a second?
Support.
Engstrom motion and Chick supported. For anyone watching out in TV land, it is required to change this because of our voting cards say the public safety building. With the presidential election, we don't feel it's a safe environment for everyone coming here due to lack of parking and no place to put people.
This is also for the primary as well.
Correct, yes. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Going forward forever, correct?
Yes, but I don't know that this resolution does that, but this resolution changes it for those. It does? Yes. Okay. I should know, I wrote the resolution.
All right. Engstrom motion, and it was Chick that supported that one? Okay, thank you. It does do a roll call vote. I will start to my right. Thomas? Yes. Otto?
Yes.
Westover? Yes. Engstrom, yes. Dockett?
Yes.
Braun? Yes. Chick?
Yes.
Thank you. Number 8 is the budget amendments. 8A, anyone have any questions?
I'll just make a comment. That one was my 16-cent mistake.
Uh-oh.
I'm sorry. Pam's rate was supposed to be 79 cents, and I said 63, so I'm sorry about that.
It was supposed to be what?
It was supposed to be 79 cents, and I said 63 at the last meeting. So I'm very sorry for the error.
Got 79 cents, is that per hour? Correct. Thank you.
Great. I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 16-546, which is the amendments to the 2016 budget. Support. Thank you. Engstrom motioned and Braun supported. Roll call, Thomas? Here. Otto?
Yes.
Westover?
Yes.
Engstrom, yes. Docket?
No.
Braun?
Yes.
Chick?
Yes.
Thank you. This would take us to 8B, Resolution 16-547, amendments to the, I just want to clarify, you have, the first one was the 2016 budget, and I have 2017 budget.
That's correct.
Thank you. Amendments to the 2017 budget. This will,
While you're at it, you might as well make an 8C and take care of an amendment to Mr. Wagner's budget as well, and make that an 8C.
would that be resolution number 548?
Yeah, why don't you deal with 8B first, and then I'll explain how you can do it.
Okay, great. Okay, so we have the motion on the table. Sorry, do we have a second on that?
Second.
Thank you, Chick. Roll call vote. Chick?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Docket?
No.
Engstrom, yes. Westover?
Yes.
Otto?
Yes.
Thomas? Yes. Thank you.
So what I would suggest would be a motion to approve a budget amendment in the amount of $6,000 for Mr. Wagner in the fire budget, and to increase all appropriate expenditure lines associated with a $6,000 increase, which would include but not limited to Social Security wage increase, a pension increase for additional wages, potentially changes on the allocation to departments if there is any, and that should be it that I can think of. So I am comfortable if you are in favor of such an amendment and an amendment to those various line items. We can put that through as long as you give that motion in second. We could probably put that through administratively and not have to come back with another amendment resolution.
I'm willing to take on that entire motion, so I do not have to repeat that. Is all right, Lisa? So I will motion. Do I have a second?
Support.
Thank you, Chick. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Is this gonna be a roll call?
Yeah, roll call, sorry. Chick?
Yes.
Braun? Yes. Docket?
No.
Engstrom? Yes. Westover? Yes. Otto? Yes. Thomas? Yes. Great, thank you. Okay, that takes us to our discussion items of the evening. Number one is the financing of the Van Curler property.
So at the last meeting, I gave a recommendation to the board to finance the Van Curler property. I believe I gave my rationale as to why I think that that would be an appropriate policy action, but ultimately it is a policy decision, and while I think that while my recommendation stands, I also don't think that paying cash is also a negative thing either. I think either is appropriate. The board did ask for options of partial financing. I did confirm with Benzinski and Associates that partial financing would be available. At this time, I would ask, we can either discuss it again in more detail tonight, or if you feel like you're ready to make a motion and second as to what you would like to do with respect to financing the property. That would be helpful to continue the process of the purchase for that piece of property. If you decide you do want to finance the property, I think that you are welcome to provide whatever percentage you would like with respect to that financing. There is implications, obviously, with financing more or less. I can go over that if you wish, but again, it's really the board's choice as to if they wish to finance and how much percentage-wise they wish to finance. And if we can speak of this in terms of percentages, it would be easier, just because if you said, I want to finance 65%, I'm not a great math guy. I don't think I could come up with 65% of 339,000 off the top of my head. So, that being said, I leave it to your discretion. 29,000.
Well, I would like to thank you, Howard, I did suggest cash, and I'd seen that it was not in you did not have it in your paperwork, but I did suggest cash, and that's what I think it should be. And according to you on this paper that I got here, it says that there's $1.5 million in the fund, and 85% of that, if we paid cash for it, there would still be $150,000 left in the account. So I believe that I don't like to see us have to, the next 2.5 boards, for the next 10 years, pay for this when we could pay cash for it. Thank you.
So I gave it also some thought, because when Kathy and Mr. Dockett suggested cash, I did give it some thought, and I do agree with them that I think that it would be probably best just to pay it in cash. I mean, if we're, really what we're doing is we're paying an extra $50,000 or more in interest, and what are we really saving?
Actually, it's 100,000.
100,000?
106,647 if you
Okay.
if you finance it. Plus, we got the soil borings and we got the bond council who would have all.
Yeah, I didn't include all that in there. I was just looking at the interest.
Yeah, okay, yeah, but there's a lot more to it than just the interest.
Oh, yeah. Well, because we don't know whether it's 3.5% or it's, or 4%.
Can I
So
say
I would suggest, because we can't nail down an interest rate, is to go out and just purchase it.
I think we should look at, think of it along the terms of how much cash do we want to reserve for an emergency? Because that's our emergency fund. But I'm all in agreement with at least paying some of it, or most of it, or all of it in cash. And I think we should all pat ourselves on the back for that piece of property. It is fantastic. It doesn't have a bunch of houses that need to be torn down. It's not fully forested. It looks like you could almost put picnic tables there right now. It's spectacular. So unless we find something horribly wrong, I think we won the lottery when we got that piece of property.
Well, I agree with her, because I'm looking at the paper that Howard put out here, and it says we have $1.5 million. 85%, if we pay the if we pay the fee, if we pay the property off, we still have $150,000.
Howard, do you feel comfortable with that balance if we did go ahead and pay cash?
I don't, but I've given my recommendation. I think the prudent thing to do is to, in my personal opinion, I think the prudent thing to do is at least finance some of it. I think that you guys will find in the future that you will appreciate that level of flexibility. And on an installment purchase contract, there is no prepayment penalty. So 3-4 years from now, if you decide that you want to pay the whole thing off, you can do that.
What?
And I can verify that as well. I personally think that there are things that are going to come up that I'm struggling, because I don't think that there's necessarily a right or a wrong to finance something or pay cash, but I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't give you what I thought my recommendation is. And my recommendation is not to strap decision-making in the future. So I would say finance at least some of it.
Well, I understand.
That's my personal opinion.
I understand that's your personal
I would
opinion,
agree
but-
with that,
but you don't
Howard. I
have
would
the
like to
vote.
fund it.
We have the votes. So.
Mr. Dockett, I'm not challenging you on that.
Well, you already told us that you think we should,
I asked him a question, he's answering me.
excuse me?
I asked him a specific question, and he's answering my question.
Well, he keeps saying the same thing after we said
No,
something different.
I've asked him a question. Thank you for your input, Howard. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd be comfortable with financing part of it. And so that we do have in reserve some extra if we need it, because we are going to need it. There's going to be additional expenses on this. So.
And there's no prepayment penalty, correct?
I will check that, and if there is a prepayment penalty, it'll come back.
Okay.
It is just a mortgage.
Right.
It's,
But it's a little
it's a little odd. It's called an installment purchase contract. Do you remember if they said there was a prepayment penalty?
I don't remember, but the difference, Mr. Thomas, is it's not secured by the real property, it's secured by the full faith and credit of the township. So it's not exactly the same as a mortgage.
We do need to make sure that there's no prepayment. I don't think there is, but if there is, it'll come back. Okay.
All right, and we'll talk about this, it'll be on the agenda in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to make a decision tonight either. We're not ready to close. It's just, I'm trying to go through all of the decisions.
Right, and if we close, even if we wanted to close right away, we still have the cash available. Is that option of the, available after you close on it? Because it's not a note on the land, it's basically a loan.
That would be a question for Miller Canfield. I think the answer to that, though, is no. I think that you have to take the loan out before you purchase it.
Okay.
That's just my recollection of conversations with them. It's definitely a question for them, not for
Yeah.
me.
Howard, if you want to get that, when you're asking about the pre-penalty, if you could just ask if that's an option that we could do if we wanted to get the closing, if we're running out of time or anything like that on the contract.
I would like to see the bond counsel price and the lawyer, the other lawyer that has to be involved. If we're gonna get a loan on this, it's more than $106,000 and it's a lot of money because we're gonna pay the bond counsel. You ought to be able to get that for us.
The other option is, and I've never suggested this option because generally we try to err on the sort of fiscal conservative approach. But the other option is to internally finance it. I mean, if you add up all of the accounts that the township has in terms of dollars available, there's plenty of money to internally finance it, but we've never really talked about how that works and, the process at which that occurs. And I've tried to steer away from that in the past because, again, we try to take a fiscally conservative approach, but that is available to you is to internally finance it. The concern that I have for this board and for the next board is that, again, let's just take a step back for a second. We set an 85% fund balance policy. Frankly, I think that's an incredibly conservative number. I think that could go down and there wouldn't be an ounce of pain and suffering at all. But let's make the assumption that that doesn't go down. If that 85% fund balance number doesn't go down, then a $330,000 purchase is pretty much, it doesn't get you to the full balance, but it comes pretty close. So I am trying to balance the wishes of this board and future boards to make good improvements for the community with the sort of fiscal conservative notion of let's not borrow money because we're paying interest. So there is a third option, and that's internally borrowing it. I can look into that if you wish.
Yeah, if we finance it internally, I like that idea. Another question is, I don't see it in
Well, what
the
that
cost
means.
to.
We pay ourselves back.
That's
We put
right.
the money back.
That's
That's like a loan, only, instead of saying now we have to save money to put in our account, we're actually putting the money.
Yeah,
back.
I mean, there are multiple ways to structure this. So, Tracy, it can mean all kinds of things. One, we could borrow. I'll have to check with legal counsel to make sure that it's allowed. It was done all day long in my other state, but you can borrow from different funds. So you could have You could have a expenditure come out of a different fund and then pay that back over time.
They would benefit from the interest.
You could, well, but let me give you one other example. You could borrow from the general fund, actually, and go below that 85%. You could say, okay, we're going to take the cash, we're going to borrow against that 85%, but we're going to build it into our budget every year that we're going to pay that back, and we'll pay ourselves back interest. But it dictates that you at least artificially lower your 85% fund balance for a period of time while you're building it back up. And all of those things are actually the preferred recommendations, but I am always trying to err on the side of fiscal conservatism because I know that that's what we lean towards, and I want to support that. So,
What's the initial cost to get the money, if we were to finance it?
if I had to guess, you're probably looking at about 10 grand worth of fees, 8 grand worth of fees. I got to figure Benzinski's probably going to come up with $3,000 or $4,000 in costs. I don't know if Paul would consider this under our existing retainer. We'd probably want Steve Mann to review the contract. My guess is you're
Could
looking
you
at
find
probably
out,
about
with all
$8,000.
the additional other questions, on the prepayment and all that, could you ask what the fee to start?
So I will look into internal borrowing and the legality of that in the state of Michigan, both from, obviously you can borrow from the general fund all day long, however you want. I'll also look at internal borrowing from other funds in the township, and I will additionally look at the fees associated with a straight conventional borrowing that we were talking about before, and I'll bring that back in 2 weeks.
And then also if the option to get it after closing.
And then the option of,
If we closed on it cash.
oh, and then getting a loan after closing and the prepayment penalty. All of those were questions. Yes, got it.
All right, go ahead.
Can we get a total, can we get the total on it, if we do it, meaning the bond council and the,
I can't.
and everything?
Yeah, I can give you an estimated total, but we don't know. Guys, this is not a big deal. So, like, for example, typically if we were to do a bond, we would go to the bank, we would have conversations ahead of time with the bank. This is a $330,000 purchase. In the scheme of governmental bonding, this is about as small as you could. The scheme of governmental borrowing, this is about as small as you could possibly get. So the bank is not going to entertain conversations about what the interest rate is until you decide that you want to actually borrow. It's just like you getting a mortgage. They're not going to guarantee you on the phone your interest rate until you send them all the paperwork.
Well, why don't you
That's
just
essentially
do
what
a
we're
worst
doing.
case scenario, wouldn't you?
Well, that's what we did on that 4%.
Well, I'd like to see the total, that's what I'd like to see.
He'll do the
I'll
total
do the
on
best I
4%.
can. Yeah, I'll do
Or
the best
maybe
I
run
can.
the scenario between 3, 3.5, and 4.
Yeah.
All right, any further questions? All right. That takes us to discussion item number 2, which is the review of the soil boring results and the environmental analysis for the Van Curler property. And we've got Jacob here in the audience.
Jacob, you're up.
Jump in. Oh, I'm sorry, I've got you up here too. It gets rid of the feedback.
How's that, better? All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. In your packets, you should have a quick update in the form of an email with a draft attachment of some soil boring results of the field work that was performed a couple of weeks ago. We're still working on some of the labs and getting the final report finished, but just wanted to update the board real quick on the status of that. So all the field work had been completed, all 13 soil borings were done. The environmental assessment was done. The lab results did come back on the 4 borings that we did the environmental testing on, and the good news there is there were no detection of any volatile organics or semi-volatile organics, so that was great to see. The physical tests that were done on the soil samples, there were 2 of those out of the 13 that came back that had some questionable materials that wouldn't be suitable for building structures on top of. Those were borings number 3 and 4. There should be a map also in your packet that shows those. Those are on the north side closest to the Al Dente Pasta shop and Rick's Bait Shop up there on the north side of the property. But those two borings, there were some really soft materials underneath the fill and topsoil, and also some peat that may have been in the past a small pond or something like that in that area, even a small wetland that was eventually filled in over time. But those materials wouldn't be suitable for building. I just noted that in my preliminary update here. So if that area is in the future somewhere that they want, you want to look at building, we would need to look at a different type of foundation for that area, or basically excavating the unsuitable material out and putting in an engineered fill. So really that's the kind of the quick update on the analysis. And like I said, we're working on the final report. That formal report should be done here by the end of this week and sent over to the township for your information. With that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Jacob, what's an example of a volatile organic or semi-volatile organic?
So we're looking for those in the environmental test. You're basically looking for things with hydrocarbons, fossil fuels, things like that. So if there's a nearby gas station, other things that are included in those are dry cleaning, things like that. So you're welcome.
Did they test for any metals or any fecal in that area too?
I do not believe those included any specific metal tests, like for lead or things like that. I do not believe those were included in the environmental tests.
Okay.
All right, any other questions for Jacob? Sounds like it's all good news so far. And next week you'll have your finals?
Correct.
Great. Okay.
Jacob, is there any, with the small area that you see some issues, have to, different levels of foundations, what were those areas, what land use would be acceptable? Are we talking, no for residential land use, but fine for retail commercial? Or are we talking, what level of foundation are we looking at, and what existing land use would be appropriate?
Right, so in those two areas, like I said, closest to Rick's Bait Shop and the Al Dente Pasta, they're kind of close to the tree line that's just south of the property line there. That area would be suitable for anything that didn't include a building foundation that's going to be down below the frost line. So when you're talking about a regular shallow foundation, you're going down, 42 inches or so for that foundation. That's when you're actually starting to get into the unsuitable material. So the material underneath the foundation doesn't have enough bearing capacity to support the load of the structure above it.
So it's not an environmental issue, it's a soil boring.
Correct.
It's a soil issue.
Yep, so it's just bearing capacity of the soil underneath.
Okay, I misheard, I'm sorry. I thought it was an environmental issue in that area.
Nope.
My apologies.
So,
It all depends on what the planned use would be in the future for that area of the property. If
Okay.
there is a building plan for that, then we need to look at doing something there. We just pointed out for information in the future when, this board, future boards start planning what they want to do with the property. If that area is considered for any type of building construction, we'll need to look more into the foundations and what we can do to build in that area. So.
It doesn't preclude you from building.
Correct.
It'll just be an additional cost to build it.
okay,
Yes.
right, and so
Yep.
I'm assuming because you did the soil borings in two spots there, how far out does it expand? Do you know or you don't know?
We really don't know. I mean, when you
Okay.
do a soil boring, it's a very small diameter hole, penetrating down 20 feet. 20 feet was the depth we did here, so it gives you the information right
that
there.
spot,
I mean,
okay.
10 feet away, it could be different. So if you are going to do a building in that area, we'd end up doing additional borings in that grid pattern around where the foundation is going to be to figure out where you do need to do something different with foundations or not. So,
Is this the north end of the property?
I'm sorry, Wayne, I didn't
Is that
understand.
on the north end of the property?
Yes, correct, on the north end.
And you said it was right next to Rick's Bait Shop?
Yeah, just south of there's kind of a tree line that comes to the south and a pretty good wooded area just south of the property there. And we couldn't do the borings in the woods, so it's just south of the woods.
Rick's Bait Shop at one time was a canal out to the lake.
Yep.
So it's probably inherently wet in that soil vicinity anyway.
Yeah, and it looks like, from the boring, there probably was some fill put in that area over time, and that's why you have a good layer of organic peat material underneath. So
So Northfield Township's basically all clay and wetlands, right?
for the most part, yeah.
Great, thank you. Anything else for Jacob?
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. Takes us on to our number 3 discussion item, Fire Department Capital Improvement Plan. We have Mr. Wagner here, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, okay.
Or Howard's.
Yeah, I'll just get us started real quick, give you a little background. So one of the things that we really need to do is do this with every department, and we're starting with fire. As you know, a few years ago, we talked about the capital improvement plan, and what we really need to do is identify the specifics of the capital improvement plan down to the cost and purchases on a year-to-year basis for each department, and put some specificity behind it and start making some decisions as what we're purchasing. Chief is, this is his plan, so he's going to present it, but he's created a CIP plan for the fire department. I've looked at it. I fully support it, and I do think the general fund can support it. And I'll leave it to you, Chief.
Okay, so hopefully you've had a chance to review the 3-page document that you have in your packet. And I put this together probably 6 or 7 months ago, and then worked with Howard and Rick back and forth, and then Rick created this spreadsheet to go along with it also. We talked a little bit in my evaluation kind of on what I'm thinking as far as apparatus, and this is specifically to apparatus, not necessarily capital improvement building type projects. I truly believe that currently Northfield Township Fire Department has too many pieces of apparatus. And what over the last 7 to 10 years surrounding fire departments have done is they've combined engines and tankers, and that would be my proposal also. So currently we have an engine and a tanker at each of the 2 stations that we have. And over a period of time, starting with a tanker here, I would, consider selling an engine and a tanker to purchase a new, what we would call a tanker/engine. It would be an engine that would have 2,500 gallons of water. As everybody knows, there is no municipal water supply in Northfield Township, so every time we have a fire, we have to bring water to it or find a water source in the area to tank and or pump to the fire itself. 2,500 gallons is pretty much the standard amount of gallonage every department around us has for trucks. So a couple years ago, we were up to 12 pieces of apparatus, including an administrative command vehicle. I think over the next 6-7 years, we should be able to reduce that down to a maximum of 8 pieces of equipment, including administrative vehicles. Actually, part of the budget that was approved at the last board meeting, I've actually already kind of set into play this project or this plan, in that we're looking, our first step will be to sell the current rescue that we have out at Station 2 that gets very little use, and replace that with a brush/utility vehicle, a more usable vehicle with way less maintenance costs than what we currently have. And then also, this part of this year's budget is to purchase a new utility to replace the current utility that we have right now, which is a 1998 Dodge pickup that has rusted through the floorboard and is actually a hand-me-down from the wastewater treatment plant. They couldn't use it anymore because the transmission is pretty much gone on it from plowing over the years. So that's just what we've used, and that's what we're in a little better position now. Last budget, we paid off the 2 rescues and an engine, so we have no more loans for fire trucks, and no matter what this board decides, I do not want to take loans out for future fire trucks. We should be saving money to purchase fire trucks in the future. And so if you had a chance to read through there, my ultimate goal would be to have a tanker/engine in each station, and then out at Station 2 you would have a brush/utility vehicle. Those are the only 2 pieces of equipment I believe that we currently need out there. This station here, obviously, we have a few more challenges here. We have, we have a ladder that was approved by the voters of the township. It's a very, very nice ladder that we have. We don't use it a lot. I can see that truck being around here for 25 years and still being in good shape. We don't put a lot of maintenance in it. It get called for mutual aid quite often. We were called over to the South Line Hotel with a ladder last week. So we don't use it a lot. It only really goes out on large commercial buildings or high-rise type buildings for fires. Otherwise, it would be an engine that would go on a residential structure fire. So then we still would have a brush truck here, a utility truck, and then also part of the plan would be, I believe it's next year, to sell the other rescue that we have, which is kind of what we call a super duty truck with a lot of compartments and space on it. I would look at replacing that with more of a Tahoe or an Excursion, just to run medical calls. It's probably half the price of the vehicle, and again, it's the maintenance costs on those two rescues that really, really killed us in the last few years. So we're gonna, lessen the number of apparatus we have. Having a little more newer pieces of equipment will lower the maintenance costs. I was probably $10,000 to $15,000 over budget this year in that line item for mechanical issues because our equipment's getting older and older. And then I believe the only other one I haven't mentioned is we would keep one of the engines in reserve in case one of our other, tankers happened to go down out of service, so that we would always have, you should always have a truck in reserve. So, I can't do it with the current budget that I have, and we talked again in my evaluation about what my thoughts are on funding this would be at some point. If it takes about a year to order and receive a truck, so we're not looking at anything really for this current budget year. But next budget year, if I could get some $250,000 from the general fund balance to go along with another $200,000 from the fire department fund balance, that would start to put us into a position where we can start saving money in the future. We know in 2023 this building is paid off. Then there will be nearly $100,000 a year in my budget that won't be going into the general fund, so that we can take that money, set it aside for future purchases of apparatus. That's kind of in a nutshell what this is saying. It's a plan, it's an idea. No matter what the board decides, again, I feel strongly I'll keep using the pieces of equipment that we have. I don't want to finance for another 8 years a fire truck that is going to put us in the hole 8 years down the road. So, as far as, and I guess I'll just talk a little bit about the building. The cell phone tower has been approved, and we've talked a little bit about the fire department receiving a portion of the funds for that cell phone tower for repairs out at Station 2. The building out at Station 2 was built, I believe, in 1972, 73, 74, something like that, and has really just sat there. Really minimal maintenance has gone into it as far as electrical, or the firefighters come in on weekends and paint when we have additional dollars to buy a couple gallons of paint to throw on it. But if you walk in there, that building was used for a lot of township board meetings back in the 80s, and a lot of private parties in the 80s, and it shows out there. We try to keep it as clean as we can. It needs tiling. It's got significant electrical issues in the building. What my hopes is for that cell phone money, it's really not going into the fire department to pay a bunch of firefighters wages or fire trucks or equipment or anything like that. It's really just to try to maintain that building that we have out there. So I guess did I miss anything, Howard?
No, I was going to add something when you were
ahead.
done. So what I mean, I've already said in the beginning that I support this. Chief and I have been talking about this for better part of 6 months. I don't begin to know, the ins and outs of the fire department and the trucks and, the need for one truck and the need for the other truck. I have the utmost respect for Chief Wagner. So if he says that that's the kind of truck he needs, I respect that. What I would ask, and it doesn't have to be a decision tonight, but at some point, if you recall, many years ago, we talked about the fund balance and what happens when you have extra money in your fund balance. And there are various categories of fund balance that you need to identify. There's a restricted category, there's sort of an open category. There's actually 4 categories under the GASB accounting standards that you have to identify fund balance under. And if you are in support of this, which I hope you are, then what I would suggest is that you make a formal vote at some point in the future to support a general fund expenditure to be reserved for the use of the purchase of the fire apparatuses, as Chief indicated.
I guess the only other real quick thing I mentioned in my evaluation that I'd like everybody to know is that we did write for a assistance to firefighters grant for a tanker for the $450,000, and to my surprise, we did make it through the first round of peer reviews. So basically, it is in line. Now, I also told you that I don't feel real confident that it will end up getting funded, just because typically what happens is these things get in a line, and I got a feeling we're kind of at the end of the line, and they'll probably run out of money. But wow, what a great thing that if that could get funded, it would end up costing us, this $450,000 truck would cost us $45,000. So that is a possibility, and there are trucks. We actually, when I was with the city of Ypsilanti, we were approved for an aerial tower, and since then they've been approved for another engine in the city of Ypsilanti. Their financial situation in Ypsilanti is a little different than what ours is, so, but it is possible, that is out there, and we're trying to find ways to get things like that, so.
The one other thing I want to say, and I know I'm going to have people disagree with me on this, and that's okay. Small communities like ours very often are not able to support large apparatus expenditures out of the fire fund, okay? So, I know that one of the thoughts and one of the critiques, and it's a valid critique in the community, if the board chooses to go on this way, and you haven't even started discussing it yet, so I don't want to get ahead of myself, but one of the critiques is, well, stay within your budget, stay within the millage. With a department like Northfield Township and an assessed value of Northfield Township and the size of the community we are, it's very rare that those large fire apparatus purchases are done through the fire department funds wholly. It's common for general fund dollars to be used for the purchase of fire trucks. Where I came from before, we had an all-volunteer fire department, and the only way we could purchase fire trucks is through the general fund.
Go ahead, Lee.
I would be against getting anything out of the general fund for the fire department. In the past, you haven't been here, Howard, but we voted, we had a vote, and we bought a $750,000 fire truck for, but we had a vote on it, and the people agreed to buy it. Isn't that right, Chief?
That was a millage vote, that's correct.
That was a millage vote, yeah. So, I mean, I like to see things done with the millage votes because that way the people understand if they want it or not. Other thing is, I don't think all the cell phone money should be going to the fire department. We got a lot of departments here, and I just don't think it was just right to just say, hey, you get this money. Next thing is selling the apparatus or trading it. Are you selling it outright, or are you going to trade, or what are you going to do with that?
Sell it.
Okay, so you'll be selling it outright?
Yep.
Okay, there's no trades on it?
I
I mean, it wouldn't be any good for a trade-in.
I think we're more beneficial if we
Okay.
actually sell
Well,
it to
like-
another
Like
department.
Howard said, I leave that to you. I think you understand that. I don't, thank you.
I think it's kind of like when you own your own personal vehicle, you'll probably get a little more money if you go out there and sell the vehicle versus taking it to the dealership and trading it in.
But I think things should be done through a millage.
All right, anyone else? Go ahead.
Conservative as you possibly can. I know that it sounds like a really good plan.
Thank you. Well, I feel pretty strongly about how fire departments should do this, and I pay taxes too, and I don't even know. I guess I would disagree with Mr. Dockett if I don't think I would propose going for a millage for a fire truck unless because the fire trucks that we have, are they still working? Yeah, kinda. They break down quite often. We've had probably one of our main tankers break down at 3 different fires this year. So they're becoming quite unreliable. But I'm not for paying more taxes either. So.
Yeah.
Correct. Glad the cell phone tower was approved and the money will be going to you to fund some of the stuff instead of a millage.
Bill, because I did a tour of the fire department with my team about, a month and a half ago, there was one of the tankers that was leaking and everything. Is that one of the ones that you're thinking of replacing?
Actually, that got fixed today, finally.
okay.
That would be the second one that would get replaced.
Okay.
That one actually has some special features for a rural area. So you notice on that particular truck, the pump is mounted on the front, so we can take that truck and put it right down to a lake or a pond and draft out of it. So, and we're not going to get much if we sell that, so that would be one of the last ones that we would end up getting rid of.
Okay.
And then we have another tanker that is out at Station 2, the one that's broken down several times. We would probably get rid of that one first. And it's older.
Chief, is this a summary document? Do you have created or perhaps created in your mind and could be reduced to some sort of a writing that would be more detailed than this as far as laying it out kind of year by year as to what that would look like? That's it right there?
Yeah, that's what, I'm not sure if did this end up in their packets?
If it did, I missed it.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, but I'm not sure this is exactly correct, because I thought when we met with Rick and Howard last week, we made a change, and I don't think I think it's 1 year off. But
Okay.
yes, that's what we
Maybe
did.
where the $300,000 expenditure is.
$250.
Well, the $250 is correct, the contribution side, but the expenditure side is probably a year off. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, so we couldn't, when Rick and I were doing this, we couldn't figure out we didn't know when you order a fire truck, do you have to have a down payment? Do you have to pay it? Do you pay it when they deliver the fire truck? Those were details that we didn't know, so we guessed on.
And like I say, if you told me today, go ahead, it would be a year, just a little over a year before you could get a truck delivered. It takes several months to create, and then you meet with the engineers, and then probably 8 months to build, depending on the manufacturer you use.
All right, anything else?
One last question. What do you want to do with the CIP plan? You want to think about it, or do you want it on the agenda?
Yeah, I think that's what we do with these workshops for, is to talk about it today, and
So you want it on the agenda for 2 weeks?
yeah, I mean,
2 weeks. So in 2 weeks' time, we're going to be voting on whether or not we'll have a set aside in the fund balance of $250,000 for fire apparatuses, and that'll be an accounting set aside, a restricted balance of our fund balance.
The only thing I would ask there is if you want me there, can you delay that 2 weeks? Because I'll be on vacation that week.
Oh,
Okay.
why don't we push it off then until when you get back?
Yeah, just the next meeting after that.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. All right, that takes us on to number 4 of the discussion items, which is the property acquisitions from the tax sale.
Brad, you're up.
I just had 2 items to add with respect to the letter that I provided to the board previously as a result of my discussion with the treasurer yesterday. I did a review of the sections of the General Property Tax Act regarding the forfeiture of properties, in addition to what was conveyed in the letter that if we end up with the property being transferred to us, we are responsible for the recapture of taxes that we have gotten through the revolving fund. In addition, there are fees that are charged for forfeited properties. There's a $175 fee each time a property is forfeited, and there's a county property tax administration fee of 4%. There may be a couple of other more minor fees, but those get added to the taxes. So when we, if we end up being transferred a property at the end of the process, if we get chargebacks from the county, it would not only include our portion of the taxes, but it would include our pro rata share of those fees. So it is slightly more than just a chargeback of our taxes. It also includes the pro rata portion of those fees. Apart from that, I don't really have anything to add to the letter. At the present time, as you probably saw from the statutory section attached, we're at the right of first refusal stage of the property foreclosure process, which is the very first stage. The state gets the first crack at any of these properties under a right of first refusal. We get second, the county gets third, and then it goes on to the sort of public sale, public auction type format.
So Brad just gave you the legal analysis, and, you know, oh,
I
sure.
thought the question was, so what happens if it doesn't sell at the foreclosure sale?
Right, so
then what? Then do we just pay the bid like it says, or do we pay the taxes and the bid? Or, I mean, is it more cost efficient to buy it before it goes to foreclosure, or wait and see what happens at foreclosure?
So
foreclosure sale, I mean.
Sure. The trade-off is at the current time, the only person ahead of us in line is the state of Michigan. So if you want the property, you're going to get the property at this point as long as the state doesn't want it. You have to pay the full minimum bid price, which is all the taxes, fees, et cetera, owing on the property, but you know that nobody's going to scoop it out from under you. If you wait all the way till the end of the process, which is sort of the second page of my letter, the county treasurer is required to offer all properties that didn't sell that are within the township to the township, and the cost at that point is there's a process under the forfeiture statutes where if the taxes are not paid, let me step back for a second. I'm sure Treasurer Braun, I'm sure you know this. When real property taxes aren't paid, we get made whole out of the county's revolving fund. The way that it works is if the taxes are never paid, the county has the option to do what's become colloquially called a chargeback procedure, where they ask us for that money back. That can also happen in the case where we end up with the property, because technically the taxes haven't been paid. So we get charged back our share of the taxes and our pro rata share of those fees that I talked about. So instead of paying the school tax, the community college tax, our tax, et cetera, which would be at the front end, at the back end we pay only our piece and our pro rata share of some of the fees. So the cost is smaller, It's not necessarily non-existent, it's smaller, but we do have to sort of hope that nobody's gonna jump in before us in order to get it that way. Which, as I say, that's the legal structure. The question of which one you want to pick is a policy question. Exactly right.
So before we get into the conversation of how bad do we want it, because that's a good question. I mean, that's a good conversation to have. Whatever you decide tonight, and you don't even have to decide tonight, it's just a discussion. Whatever you decide moving forward, I really would ask that this board, and this board probably will not have this issue come in front of it again, but I would like this board to have some conversation about what is the policy around those park properties and those properties around Horseshoe Lake. We have been acquiring those properties for have to be 20 years. We have hundreds of properties that we have acquired over the years around, particularly behind Township Hall for the 7 Mile Preserve Park. It doesn't look like that many properties today because they're all contiguous, but every single one of them was 30 feet lots. They're hundreds. Wouldn't you agree, Trace?
There's 1,100.
Huh?
There's over 1,100.
Yeah, we have been acquiring them for 20 years. So, or they've just landed on us because people have been giving them. And it has been, and I just want to give you some history here. This has been in the Parks and Rec master plan that I can find since 2008. So how you purchase them, that's a policy decision, and if you want to continue purchasing, it's a policy decision as well. But that's the reason why these properties have been purchased. The Horseshoe Lake ones is slightly different. The Horseshoe Lake properties is really been a wetland protection issue, okay? And I would encourage you to continue to purchase both of these. One, I would encourage the park because I think it's a good park plan, and it's in the Parks and Rec master plan, and the Parks and Rec board is supportive of it. And then secondly, on the Horseshoe Lake side, tomorrow morning, we are meeting with FEMA to have our community assistance visit, which is a year and a half after we requested it. If anybody thinks bureaucracy is difficult at the local level, try to deal with the federal government through FEMA. It took us a year and a half to get through the system. But we have our community assistance visit, and eventually we will present the best management practices to FEMA that we're doing to get our residents reduced rates on their flood insurance. That's the whole process of going through the program that we're doing. Those properties along that Horseshoe Lake will get points, and those points will add up. And I can't say what those points are today and what the percentage is, but the more points you get, the reduced rates that you have on your flood insurance through the community rating system, CRS system. So I am strongly in favor of a policy decision to continue getting these properties. How you get them, that's your call.
Yeah, go ahead, Wayne.
Okay, on the paper that we got from you under payment for property, state law, if the delinquent taxes that are due and payable to the county are not received by the county on behalf of the taxing unit in the county, in this state or any other reason, the county has full right of recourse against the taxing unit. That's us. To recover the amount of the delinquent tax and interest at the rate of 1%. Now, I talked to you about this today. The base tax and the interest on these 4 lots is $233.83. Now, if this is state law, that says that they can charge just the interest plus 1%. I mean, excuse me, just the taxes plus 1%. I mean, they want us to pay $3,579 for these lots. It's a total ripoff. I mean, they're appraised at $600. Some of them, well, $900 altogether. And I mean, it would be pennies, not all this money. Now, I'm asking you, we don't have to buy these properties. Is that correct? They can't force us to buy them, or can they?
Two points. First of all, as we talked about today, Mr. Dockett, I did look into the question of fees, and so in addition to the taxes and the interest that you mentioned, there are the $175 fee, the 4% administrative fee, but I agree with you, those are not large fees. As a practical matter, at this stage in the process, as of June going into July, the county cannot force us to purchase the properties at this point in the process. At the end of the process in December, they can offer the properties to be transferred to us, which we can object to, but that's where you generally end up with the situation where the county is trying to, push you towards taking them. And at that point, it's just the chargeback, which is just our portion of the taxes, rather than at this point, which is the
Considerably
full
less, is that correct?
I haven't run the numbers on any of it, but I would expect so, because we're only talking about the township's share of the taxes as opposed to the full tax burden.
Well, my problem is, I know the property, and there's 1,100 lots out there. If we could go to the county, and say, look, we'll take them all, but we want them before you spend, $600 or $800 on putting them up for auction for 4 years, and they don't sell. So, why don't they, I would think that they would be just as glad to give us the property before they run the bill up to $3,500 on lots that are worth pennies. That's where I'm coming from. So, is there any way that we can contact McCully and ask her, how many of the 1,100 lots are, we pay this, we've been paying it right along. When's it gonna end? There's 1,100 lots.
I don't think I think the statute requires a property to be delinquent for a certain period of time, and for the county to go through a particular process before an action is taken in order to transfer the property to different ownership. Because now you're infringing on.
That's right. As a practical matter, certainly we'd be more than happy to try and coordinate with the treasurer to make sure that we're getting as much savings as we possibly can. But as a practical matter, as you pointed out, Mr. Dockett, much of this is very tightly regulated by state law. In other words,
It doesn't, excuse me, I don't mean to cut
go
you
right
off.
ahead.
It doesn't look like it to me, according, when I talked to you today, I asked you about this, and it says to recover the amount of the delinquent tax and interest at the rate of 1%. So the total on all 4 lots is $233.83 plus 1%. That is what the actual cost is.
That's correct. But in order to get that actual cost, we couldn't, for instance, go to the treasurer now and say, why don't we just skip to the end here and you just give it to us for that? They have to go through the entire statutory process of offering it to the state, offering it to us, offering it to the county, sending it out to tax auction.
And all this is just keeps raising the price, and the people in Northfield Township are the ones that have to pay. The county makes money, everybody gets their money but us.
But there is a possible way to jump ahead in the process.
Right. And
there's a what?
There's a possible way to jump ahead in the process.
Right.
Why don't we identify the parcels that look like they're leaning toward this process and go directly to the current owners and see if we can go to if we know what it's going to cost us to involuntarily have the properties kind of handed to us, then 3 years from now, and we're fairly certain that that's going to end up happening, let's go to the owners and ask them to donate the property to us right now.
Yes, but if you look at this paper, they haven't paid for 4 years, And
Well, right.
instead of them selling us to it 3 years ago, when there was not all these auctions and everything, it's $250 for the last 4 years for each one, every time it goes to court.
What I'm saying is, let's try and identify those parcels 4 years ago. In the future, I'm not suggesting that we have a time machine, though that would be pretty cool. In the future, identify the properties now that look like we're going to be in the fix that we're in 3 and 4 years from now, and try and engage a dialogue with the owners right now about donating the properties.
I agree with you 100%, because I can't tell you how many times over the years, before this being here, people call me, I bought a piece of property at the tax sale and it's underwater. What do I do with it? And so it's a cycle that will never end. People keep bidding on them, buying them, and they keep coming back.
And just to let this board know, it's something that the Parks and Recreation Board has been talking about doing, and it's a project that I told the Parks and Recreation Board, it's a project that, partly because of this issue, but partly because that's a really intriguing space behind for a park. It's a project that I'm going to kind of steer and kind of shepherd forward. So, in my capacity as the Parks and Recreation Board, that's what I'm going to be working on. So, it's got some connection to the idea of these fees and costs, but it's also in the context of the fact that there might be a park there one day, or at least an outline of one. So
I'm not against buying them. I mean, I voted on for years to buy them, but this says the assessed value is $300. That's the assessed value. The taxable value is only $150. I mean, it's not worth $1,100.
So, a while back, in my management reports, I indicated that we were going to apply for a Natural Resources Trust Fund grant, and we went through the motions of doing that. And what we found is that it wouldn't be useful to do that, and that's when we sort of shifted gears. Paul Burns' office is in the process right now of drawing up a letter to, if anybody wants to donate the properties to us, sort of a letter indicating what their tax implications of that would be. As soon as we get that, we actually have the list already created. We'll be sending out that letter to all of the property owners. That before that letter goes out, that decision will have to be made by the board, because you're going to have to authorize dollars to purchase those properties. But those letters will go out to those property owners, because actually Tracy's 100% correct. We want to get them direct from the property owners because it's cheaper, and we want to actually.
Can't they just donate them?
They can. Yeah, they can donate them, and we want the whole block. We want the whole map for that particular park. We just anticipate that some people are going to want some kind of consideration, minor mostly.
The county's got
Right.
$3,600. There ain't no way they can give it to us.
When is the sale?
Third week in July, if I recall correctly.
All right, any further questions at this time on that subject? All right. That takes us on to our second call to the public. Is there anyone else that would like to speak this evening? Well, come on up.
My name is Diana Knoll, and I am the treasurer of the Whitmore Lake 4th of July Committee. That committee itself.
Diane, can you speak more into the mic? There you go.
That committee itself is the fundraising committee for the fireworks, and only the fireworks at this time. Our 501c allows us, or has, we got our 501c because we're providing a community service. We provide you with the program and the advertising for a lot of the things that go on here during the 4th of July. We are a committee of about 12 to 15 people, with probably 6 to 8 of them doing the load of the work. I think that's probably the situation of most volunteer organizations today. We want to make sure that we acknowledge that the town has helped us in a lot of ways. We know that we don't pay for our fire and our police protection, and we certainly appreciate that. And we don't mean to slight at all when we do any of our publications that say we don't get the public support, because we know that we do. How we have funded, my history is only 8 years with this committee. That's a lot of 8 years volunteering, though. We have done fundraising. We send letters to solicit to the businesses in this community, and also letters that go to private individuals who I call friends of the fireworks. We would like some assistance, I think, from the township in trying to address to the public to make them much more aware that this is funded for them and by them. We tried to think of some ways that perhaps we could ask the township to help us, whether it's sending a letter to the waterfront assessment rolls, which is something that we did last year, and our cost to send that announcement out requesting funds for the fireworks ended up receiving enough funds to pay for the mailing. We need some kind of public support, I believe, from the township, encouraging the people to keep this community activity going. To the best of my knowledge, this is our 57th year of celebrating the 4th of July in Whitmore Lake. And it would be shameful if we had not the fireworks to be part of that celebration. So again, we want to acknowledge and we thank very much for your fire and safety and all the other support that you have given us, but we need a little bit more. Last year, maybe the year before, you may have seen posters around town that said, without volunteers, there will be no fireworks. Well, we got volunteers in name, but we need more help financially and encouragement for private individuals to perhaps join the committee so that we can keep this tradition going. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else at this time? All right. That takes us to board member comments. If you don't mind, I'd like to go first tonight. I love your T-shirt. Are those for sale someplace? Where?
I want to share with you, though, too, that you do have town vendors who have supported the fireworks, and I have a T-shirt and their thank you cards here for that.
Did you give Jacob?
These are available.
Did you give Jacob his T-shirt?
Which is Jacob.
Jacob was sitting right in front of you. That was OHM.
Which is my other question. I know we've talked about in the past, and I think
Oh.
Would you come up to the microphone again and tell everyone where to buy? That is a wonderful T-shirt, and maybe Jim, you could show all of our audience on TV.
Your advertising is on the back, and your vendors are there, and your vendors are also in the yellow goldenrod program that is around town. There are a few of us who have sold in front of Polly's every Friday night and every Saturday morning. The T-shirts are available at Polly's and at Max Arena and also at the Whitmore Tavern. And they're 10 cents, $10 each. This year, our fundraising has been the 50-50 raffle that you see us selling raffle tickets for. And several of the members of the committee have actually done door-to-door soliciting. And of course, the personal approach is the most productive. Everybody tosses a flyer or a letter in the wastebasket, but when you're met face-to-face. And I've met some absolutely wonderful people in town just selling the T-shirts and selling the raffle tickets.
You have a GoFundMe on Facebook?
We have, Connie Pop has done a lot of our publicity through the Facebook pages, but the Whitmore Lake 4th of July Committee also has a website, which is called WhitmoreLakeFireworks.org. And we do have a PayPal account on that. And we, like I said, we also have our post office box that we ask that people perhaps send us checks to.
Howard, maybe we could get it on the township Facebook page too.
Yeah?
Yep.
Yeah. So may I make a comment or two?
Yes.
One is if and when, and I should say if and when, and hopefully we get the Van Curler property, that'll be a significant help to the 4th of July committee.
For the parking, right?
Yeah, for the parking, but not only for the parking, just for the whole event. I mean, it could change the whole event. It could change the dynamics of where people sit.
That will make things much easier for parking, and it'll make easier for them to fundraise for parking also.
Yeah. So,
but managing the traffic is our big challenge that night, and when we can have them all in one place, it just makes it much, much nicer.
Yeah.
So when we have that property, I mean, there's a real opportunity to turn 4th of July in Whitmore Lake into something that everybody from all of Washtenaw County comes to, because now we have the property, the parking, the ability to support it. I will say this, as somebody who does live on the lake, I am perplexed as to why the people that are living on the lake don't support the fireworks more. Given that those are the individuals that most benefit from it. I remember last year, just as a story, I sat out on the dock and I watched the fireworks from the 4th of July from the show for 30 minutes. It was a great show. And then I sat there and watched every single person that was shooting off fireworks around the lake. I sat there for hours watching fireworks, but you know, the people on the lake really need to come support it a little bit better, and maybe this board can come up with ideas. Maybe it's something that you'd want to think about, you know, giving to, and if you were, you would want to give, and it would only be appropriate to give as well to the parade committee, who does a tremendous amount of work as well, and is you know, kind of sort of the same kind of tireless volunteer effort to get these things off the ground. But think about that, because we made the decision that we weren't sending out letters to our vendors, and I know these two groups need help. I know the fireworks committee, they have to raise, you know, $15,000-$20,000 every year. For the parade committee probably has to raise $5,000 or $10,000 every year.
We're at
Six. I mean, this is big money for small little communities, and so, you know, if you guys want to do something, want to think of suggestions, I think it would be helpful.
I know we've talked about, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to comment because Diana Noel and I have worked together a little bit with the township vendors, and the parade committee does have a GoFundMe out there, and when we publicized it, we had over 3,000 people that we reached in around Whitmore Lake area. We had probably over 400 people liking it, and all I could think of is if each person gave us $10, we would have had $40,000.
Just $10 for those who perimeter the lake.
Yes.
Perimeter the lake.
I mean, you have to understand that the community, that these two events put on a event that doesn't cost you. And if you pay $5 for the parade, $5 for the fireworks, it would pay for both of ours. So and I know at the fireworks, there's alone probably about 300 people that are there, right, Bill, or more?
More, there are thousands.
Yeah, and at the parade, it's equally. So we just, when you start looking in those terms, that if everybody, you know, finally I had to just say to people, just give us $5, just give us $10. I'm not looking for hundreds, I'm looking for little amount. And I'll tell you, in a short amount of time, we've only had that GoFundMe up for 2 months. We have over $1,000 that we raised for Kiwanis. So, I mean, it is worth it. Both committees work awfully hard to put on great events, and they do cost.
So I have a question. What if you set up at this year's functions, like donation booths for next year? They do. They do, okay.
Yeah, actually, when we're done with the parade, we give ourselves a month, and then we start all over again.
We do
It's-
also.
It's a year planning.
In years gone by, when hopefully we had more people that were participating in fundraising, we did Texas Hold'ems. We did wine and beer tastings. We did raffles. And we just begged and borrowed from everybody that we could find. I do want to acknowledge that for our parking, the committee has been able to secure Mr. Kale's property across from Dirt Squirt, and perhaps Dirt Squirt's grounds, and the southern lawn of Best Western, and the library parking lot, and the old town hall. That's the only parking that we are able to help manage. Others are all private, and they take their donations, or they charge for parking. When our folks go out with their canisters, people say, "How much is parking?" We say, "There's no charge, but would you like to donate for the fireworks?" And we can't charge because we create ourselves a liability if we charge for parking for those landowners. So we don't. It's all donations just for the fireworks.
All right, and then I know we talked about in the past about our suppliers, yes, no, take donations. Where did we ever end up on that? I don't remember if we.
I sent letters to all those who provided us funds
Each committee sent letters to each of the vendors,
Yeah.
township vendors, and they did contribute.
Oh.
I don't know if all of them contributed, yeah,
4 vendors.
yeah.
4
There
vendors
was,
from the town.
there was too much conversation and, you know, I didn't think it was an unethical practice. I think it's a standard practice that communities do, but I didn't want that to be the dialogue. There was too much chatter about the ethics of it. There were comments made, and I made a decision at the request of I made the decision, but certainly at the request of a few, or encouragement of a few people, to just stop the practice because it was becoming too, it was just getting in the way of things, and it wasn't productive anymore. So we
Because
decided to not do it.
Because the importance is the parade and the fireworks.
Right.
It isn't, why are we asking for donations from our vendors?
Right.
I want to make a special note, though, a special thanks to Mike Ball, who wrote the article in the May Current magazine, or the newspaper. And I know that his humorous account of what goes on in preparation for the fireworks really was the culmination of this last week, our big push of getting the barge ready for the millions of fireworks that go up on it, and people who do barge guard. I mean, I'm still looking for some folks to do that. And we need folks to help us for parking, I mean, to make it safe for everyone else. But I want to say a special thank you to Mike Ball for doing that, as humorous as it was, and raise a beer. But
And could you tell everyone, since you have the microphone and maybe anyone at home, how can anyone get a hold of you?
they can do it through our website or my
And what is the website again?
WhitmoreLakesFireworks.org.
Whitmore Lakes is
Lake.
Whitmore Lake Fireworks.
Fireworks.org.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then any other page or Facebook or anything like that? Do you have?
Well, we are on Facebook, but like I say, that is the entire Whitmore Lake Facebook, and I'm not sure who actually is coordinating that.
Is that our page, Howard?
No, Connie Pop, I know. I mean,
Okay.
I think it
I
has
know
Hope on
who does it.
Is it Connie?
It's Deb Mergertzwitz, and probably also Connie does it.
Yeah.
Okay, so your website, they can find all the contact information. Right. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other board member comments at this time? Is that a yes or, yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so since Diana did comment, I do want to let everybody know the 4th of July parade is on the 4th of July at 10 o'clock. We do have a GoFundMe account. It is 2016 Kiwanis Parade. And I want to let everybody know we do need 1 or 2 more volunteers. Not a lot of work, but it's fun. And just an announcement that Paws, the Tigers mascot, will be in our parade this year. He will be going 15 minutes before the parade starts to start interacting with the crowd and the people who are watching the parade. So just make sure that the parade starts at 10. If you want to see Paws, you have to be there and lined up at 9:45.
Great. Anyone else? Go ahead, Wayne.
I would like to remind people that you should try to get a copy of the ballot. Read the ballot. It's going to be quite long this year. A lot of stuff on there to vote on. And if you split your ballot, if you vote for on the Republican side and then you switch over onto the Democrat side, your ballot is soiled. Isn't that correct? Now, how about the proposals like the school millage? Do you count them, or is the whole ballot is shot? Excuse me?
You're only talking about the primary ballot, so the general election will be different. So you're talking about the August ballot, in which, yes, you would have to either vote Republican or Democrat, but those kind of things wouldn't be party affiliated, so it would still.
The proposals aren't.
Correct.
So they will be counted?
Right.
Okay, so even if that's, okay, and happy 4th of July to everyone, and that's it for me tonight.
Yeah, I have a question. It's come up several times at the Planning Commission meeting. It came up again at Meet the Candidates tonight, and I've gotten a couple of requests since then. A lot of people in the township are very interested in a land preservation policy. Is that something that the board establishes, or is that something that we talk about at the Planning Commission level?
Wow.
Sorry.
That's the question at the end of the meeting?
Yes or no?
Oh. Well, the Planning Commission, okay, so let me try to make this brief. The Planning Commission can have that conversation and have that discussion. There's no question about it. The end of the day, my knowledge and expertise, my experience, I shouldn't say expertise, my experience leads me to believe that ultimately that's a conversation that's going to happen at the Board of Trustees level, because it's really a conversation of, and I really am not trying to say pro, con, good, bad, yes, no. It's really a conversation of priorities. It's a conversation of priorities. It's a conversation of vision. It's not only that, it's a conversation of expenditure of funds. Because at the end of the day, there's not that many ways to look at land preservation. There's certainly one way is regulatory, zoning, for example. That's not a foolproof way. I mean, regulatory methods are changed over time, just like the master plan is a fluid document. The regulations that go in line with that are change over time. And whether we like it or not, the reality is the courts can change regulatory issues and regulatory decisions that communities make. The only real way to look at land preservation in a permanent sort of model is to buy land and have the township preserve it, or some entity other than the township preserve it, whether it be some kind of land trust, or the county, for example, has a millage that is enacted in Washtenaw County for the purchase of greenbelt properties. It's not to say that these, the county and the city of Ann Arbor had significant debate with this, and many people in the planning profession think it's a great, approach to concentrate development in one area and try to preserve the green spaces and open spaces around you. But again, it's a policy consideration, it's a vision issue, it's a priorities issue, and other than the regulatory approach, which is not a bulletproof approach, it's a dollar issue, and it's going to have to happen at the township board level. And there's also the other side of it too. There's a lot of there's no right or wrong to this.
Know where it would happen and how, yeah.
What's that?
I wanted to know where it would happen first, or
I don't.
It doesn't make a
I
difference.
don't have an answer to that.
Okay.
I think it should probably just be an organic conversation.
Yeah, that kind of thing, it needs a champion. It can start at the planning commission level, it could start here, it could start privately, it could start from a county initiative, it could come from about anywhere. Ultimately, it would have to be, if we were, as the township, if we were enacting legislation or ordinances, then it's going to come through the Board of Trustees, but it doesn't have to start here. It can start anywhere.
All right, anyone else? All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will give it to Mr. Berman.
Thank you very